We are sons of light, piercing darkness with his bright light. So I'm gonna be the light to those who don't know of him.
Well, I want you to imagine that it's tonight and you've just gotten into bed and you are really, really tired. And you fall asleep as your head hits that pillow. And you go into a deep sleep. And immediately you begin to dream. And you dream that you are walking in a place of pitch darkness. You cannot see a thing, and you begin to feel fear as you're walking and bumping into objects. Sometimes it feels like a wall. Sometimes you're not sure if you're walking over bodies. You don't know if they're alive or dead. You feel the fear. You think someone's walking behind you. You feel like there's breath on your neck, and you begin to run because the fear is great. The fear is getting a hold of you. And as you run, you're hitting into things. You feel like hands are grabbing you. The fear is so great. You feel traumatized and you run. You feel so frightened. You feel so scared. And as you are running, you begin to fall and you fall and you fall and you fall until eventually you come to a place where you're just lying there still. You feel broken. You feel full of pain. You feel like every bone in your body is broken. You know you are bleeding because you can feel the thickness of blood all over your skin. And you lie there, and even the notion of living begins to leave you. And as you lie there in pain, with a loss of hope, going in and out of sleep, you suddenly look, you focus your eyes, and in the distance, you see a light. And your eyes are drawn to that light. And you watch it for a while, and you begin to feel filled with hope. And you get up and you start to drag your broken body towards the light. And as you get closer and closer to the light, fear begins to leave you because you know that there is safety in the light. You know that you will be okay in the light. You know that when you get into the light, it will expose your nakedness. It will expose your shame. But somehow it makes you feel safer because you're in the light. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. This is a picture for me of us without Jesus. This is a picture of me, for me, of us before Jesus. You know, sometimes when you've walked in your faith for a long time, you forget that happens. You forget that there are people that are actually groping around in the darkness, filled with pain, filled with shame, filled with fear, with their lives filled with destruction. They are lost, they are confused, they are hurting. And life for them is just really dark and hopeless. This week, I heard the story from Pastor Vera. For those who know, she came to Activation, and she was telling me afterwards this story, and I thought it was so beautiful, of a Sunday school teacher who had a heart for the street kids, the kids who had nowhere to go. Society had forgotten them. And he began to go into their community and their areas, and they would be playing marbles, and he would sit down on the ground with them and just begin to play marbles, build a relationship with them. And he would say to them, come to church with me, and I'll buy you a suit. And the one little boy looked at him suspiciously and said to him, if I come to church with you, you're going to buy me a suit? And he said yes. So the little boy went to church with him. He got his suit. He went to church. When church was finished, he left. He didn't even let him know. He just disappeared, and he disappeared for weeks. He sold the suit. A couple of weeks later, he bumped into the little boy and he went, "Hey, come to church. I'll buy you a suit." The little boy looked at him and said, "You're going to buy me a suit?" And he said, "Yes." The next day he was there with his suit. They went to church and he disappeared after church. And the man didn't see him for a few weeks again. He'd sold the suit. A few weeks later, he saw the little boy and he said to him, "Come to church. I'll buy you a suit." And the little boy looked at him and he said, "Okay." And he came to church with his suit that the man had bought him. And after church, he disappeared. You know the story. Suit sold, gone for a few weeks. A couple of weeks later, the man saw the boy and he said, "Come to church." And the little boy said, "You're going to buy me a suit?" And he said, "Yes." So he came to church with his suit. Nothing. After church, disappeared. Didn't see him for a few weeks. He knew that he was selling that for drugs and for his stuff. A couple of weeks later, fifth time, he said to the little boy, he saw him, it was, "Hey, come to church, I'll buy you a suit." Little boy was, came to church with his suit, usual story, disappeared, and was gone for a few weeks. A couple of weeks later, the man saw the little boy and he said, "Come to church." Boy looked at him and said, "You're going to buy me a suit?" He said, "You must know." He came to church, and this time, the sixth time, he gave his life to Jesus and never left church again. What's so amazing about the story is that I don't know if any of you know a famous preacher. He was a seminary teacher by the name of Howard Hendricks. Because of this Sunday school teacher's ministry, a little boy by the name of Howard Hendricks got saved. He eventually became the mentor, cell leader of Bruce Wilkinson. Bruce Wilkinson in 2001 came to our country. I had, as a Christian, a radical change in my heart because of his ministry. He has a ministry all over the world because of one faithful Sunday school teacher who kept asking for someone to come to church. Isaiah 52 says, "Long ago my people chose to go and live in Egypt. They were living in Israel, and a great famine came, and they had to go for survival reasons because of the famine to Egypt. And they stayed there. And after many, many years, decades, centuries, they became slaves. And God said to one man, 'I want you to go. I want you to speak to Pharaoh to set my people free.' And he said, 'Oh, I can't.' And he said, 'Yes, you can.' And he went and said, 'Set my people free.' And came back to God and said, 'He won't.' And God said, 'Go back.' And then he went back and said, 'Set my people free.' And he said, 'No.' And he came back to God and God said, 'Go back.' And this happened 10 times. Imagine if he had given up after the 6th time. And it says, 'Long ago my people chose to live in Egypt. Now,' so they were set free. They came out of Egypt through great miracles, and they went to live in the promised land, a place of flourishment, of abundance, of goodness. They were set free. But then it says, now they are oppressed in Assyria. Now what's this? Why are my people enslaved again? How is it that we move from the light back into the darkness? If the greatest commandment is to love God and to love people, my only thought is we moved away from the greatest commandment. We are either following the light or we are retreating back into the darkness. We're heading back into a place where we are becoming slaves again. You see, we live in a world where it's all about living in the spotlight. The world looks at our gifting. The world looks at our talents. And you know, the problem with the spotlight is people shine the spotlight on you. And that sounds awesome until they take the spotlight off of you. But when we accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, the light comes to dwell, comes to abide, comes to live, comes to habitation inside of us. It dwells here and it shines out. And no one can take that away from us. And as we live and allow the light to become a habit in our lives, that light shines brighter. Do you know that our poor thinking can cover that light? I have the ability to place myself back in darkness, back into a place of slavery. We get ourselves into slavery through dark thoughts. I'm not talking about contemplating murdering your neighbor. I'm talking about where you are prepared to switch the light off to people, where people don't matter anymore. When we think, well, they don't want my help. When someone walks back to Egypt, they never want the help. They're missing the cucumber, the garlic, the onions. Yes, that's what the people said to Moses. We miss the garlic. I could understand if they said steak. But garlic, onions, and cucumber. Okay, vegetarians, really? So Isaiah says, are you serious? Are you in slavery again? And then he says after this, he says, my people got out of slavery and then they went back in. And then he says a verse we know so well. He says, how beautiful are the feet of him that brings good news of peace and salvation. Because in the darkness, there's no peace. You are tormented. You are broken. Your relationships are falling apart. And you're filled with strife and anger and hatred all of the time. There's no peace. But when we follow the light, when we receive the good news and then we give the good news, we walk in peace and salvation. We need to go back, even if it's after the 5th time. The verse goes and says, it says that the watchmen shout and sing for before their very own eyes. They've seen the people going to slavery. Then they've seen the ones with the beautiful feet going to fetch them. And they watch this and they begin to sing because before their very eyes, they see the change. You know, watchtowers were placed overlooking fields, so that especially at harvest time, they could hire people. It was an important job to be a watchman, watching that no animal would destroy the crops or no thief would come and steal. But you also had watchmen who would sit on the walls, especially in times of strife. And they would be on the walls and they would be watching to see if anyone was coming. And if someone was coming, they would be looking to see, is this person bringing good news or are they bringing bad news? If they're bringing bad news, we're going to close the city wall gates and we are going to get ready to fight. You know what amazes me is, so many times in the Bible, it talks about broken down walls. What do you do when the walls are broken down? The book of Nehemiah is so amazing because Nehemiah heard that the walls of the city were broken down. He was grieved. He fasted. He felt such pain in his heart. He was moved. He went to the king and he asked permission to go and rebuild the walls. He knew that walls that are built is a picture of restoration, blessing, protection, and prosperity. But he also knew that when the walls are broken down, the enemy comes rushing in like a flood. And so he wanted to build the walls. You know what is so amazing about the book of Nehemiah? It says the people came, not just the construction builders, but the priests, the Levites, the administrators. What do administrators know about building? The administrators, the fathers and their sons, the fathers and their daughters, the goldsmiths, everyone came. And they began to build the walls across from their houses. Some of them built the walls next to their houses. Some of them built the walls along the whole street, and others went way up there. But they began to build the walls. They stepped into their neighbors. You know, we like to go, listen, they're fighting again. They always fight. Yes, did you hear what she said to him? And we are supposed to be stepping in to rebuild the walls. We are not supposed to sound like everyone at work who goes, yeah, listen, if I was married to him, I would be gone long time ago. That is not how the light speaks. That is not how the light speaks. And so we have to bring in a picture of restoration because the enemy is a liar. Do you know that so many times in the Bible, the enemy would come and they would say, just come outside the gates. Let's negotiate. Let's talk. But they were lying. It was a picture of deception because the moment they opened the gates, the enemy would come rushing in. So we need to know that we need to be fighting for people. People are broken. If you've been Christian for a long time, you speak Christianese very well. You sound very unattractive to people who are in the dark. I'm so worried. So-and-so sick. Yeah, no, you must just have faith, eh? Must have faith, yeah. And you must pray, eh? Yeah. How do they walk away from that? Oh, condemned? Feeling bad? No hope. They have no hope. But Jesus said, follow me. Follow me. You know, the devil likes to lie to us so that we say, you know what, this is too complicated. I can't do this. I'd rather be in the house alone, me and the dogs. It was a joke, sweetie. Okay. Jesus never said, follow me, and I'll make your life fun. Jesus never said, follow me, and I'll make your life less complicated. Jesus never said, follow me, and I will make you comfortable. He never did it. Nada, not once, I zigalo. Never. He never said that. But he actually calls us to repair the broken walls in people's lives. He asks us to step into their marriages and just encourage them and tell them that God's got this and tell them, you know, when you change, everything changes. And I have shared this so many times, but I'm going to share it again. And literally in 2001, before Bruce Wilkinson got here, I was very resentful in my marriage. I used to sit in my prayer time with the Lord. I mean, poor God, he must have been, oh, not again. And I'd say to him, you know, God, I must have sinned so much that you've given this man to me. And God would be quiet. There was no movement of the Holy Spirit. And I would say that with such anger and with such hurt. And then I went on a conference in 2001. And Jesus changed me so much. And I was sitting with Gavin just after that conference, and I laughed at him and I said, you know, you must have sinned a heck of a lot in your life that you got stuck with me. That's how much I changed. And I meant that. It wasn't like, now I've got to say the right words because I need to speak Christianese, because I really meant that. And so Isaiah 58, in closing, says this: your people will rebuild the ancient ruins. Some versions say your sons and daughters will rebuild the broken walls. They will rebuild the deserted ruins of your cities. I'm reading 3 different versions, the same line. So if you look at it, that's why I'm reading 3 different versions at the same time. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins. Your sons and daughters will rebuild the deserted ruins of your city. Those from among you shall build the old waste places where everyone else gave up. You will be the construction builder. You will fix it. It says, you will be called repairer of broken walls, restorer of streets and dwellings, restorer of homes. Dwellings is places. You will be the restorer of that. That when firstly you step into your home, everything changes. It doesn't matter how much strife there is. It doesn't matter how drunk someone is. It doesn't matter how high someone is. When you step in, everything changes. The calm begins to come. Not the judgment. The calm begins to come. The fear begins to leave, because where there is light, the darkness has to flee. It has to go. And then, as our homes begin to change, and even while we're changing our homes, because it brings us a testimony, as we're having this fight, let's pretend, well, we do have fights, eh? We don't. We don't have fights. We have challenging conversations, but we don't have fights. He's always right and I'm always right. No, let me not talk nonsense. Pardon, sweetie? We have vibrant conversations. And then I'm sitting talking to someone who's had a vibrant conversation. And now I've got a testimony. I was sitting with friends and saying, you know, I used to sit with my husband and I used to think God has so punished me. And the one lady went, yes, that's exactly how I feel. And now, as I finish my story, she mustn't feel condemned. She must feel, I also want to feel like that. I also need to change. And so God has called us. When we change, our marriage will change. When we change, our children will change. We need to start catching our children do the right thing. We're too good at catching them do the wrong thing. And then, yeah. I don't sound like that, but sometimes. When we change, our workplace will change. Even that sangoma at our workplace will change when we change. Jesus says, I am the light of this world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. I have come to give you life in all its fullness, Jesus says. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And in closing, you know, when Pastor Kenneth spoke about if you don't know you're loved by God, stand. And I know I'm loved by God, and I sat. But later on, as we were worshiping, I was thinking, I don't always know that God loves me because I have pitiful thoughts. I retreat from things, which means I don't realize the love that I walk in. I was like, Lord, man, I should have stood. But as Pastor Kenneth was also preaching, he said this. He said, and I wrote it down in my book, he says, what is holding you back? What is holding you back? What is holding me back is me. It's no one else. There's no one I need to blame in my life. I can be insecure. I can retreat into little corners. I can think I'm nothing because of pride. Because we think pride is just thinking we're all that. But if you think like that, like I do, it's pride still. And that's what holds me back from the things of the Lord. So what is holding you back? Can we, in closing, get rid of whatever is holding us back?
Dream, picture, declare, never giving up till I reach the promised land. I'm stepping out of the weakness of my flesh into the cold land and anointing. I will dream, picture, declare.
Our Father in heaven, reveal who you are. Set the world right, Jesus, you're in charge. Do what's best as above, so below. We wanna see the kingdom established here and now. Give us bread, Lord, forgive us as we forgive. Save us from ourselves and protect us from the devil. Lord, you can do anything you want. You're a blazing beauty. I'm a soldier on duty. As above, so below. Jesus, change our lives, change our culture, change our nation.